My guest today is Tasha Scott. She's a speaker, certified life and business coach for women in business, workshop leader, entrepreneur, and author. She's a wife and a mom, and the founder of the Don't Limit Me and Women Connect movements. She owns two thriving businesses, and they are Scott Real Time Reporting, LLC, and TashaMScott.com, where she motivates and encourages women entrepreneurs. Through her coaching programs and her live workshops, small groups, and Women Connect movement, she regularly delivers life-changing messages, empowering others to live out their dreams and fulfill their purpose. What makes her unique is that she draws audiences in with her powerful stories that are transparent and honest to the core. She shares the lessons she's learned in business and life with humility and conviction. She exhorts others to fully realize every ounce of potential within them and live a no-holds-barred life of purpose and significance. Well, Tasha, you sound like an interesting person, and I'm glad we get to talk with you today.
Thank you so much.
Well,
I'm thrilled here.
your personal story is very powerful on how you got started in this work of empowering women. And of course, we hear about empowerment so much today. Share a little bit of that with us.
Yes, ma'am. I always tell people the way that I got started is it was from my own painful journey. As an entrepreneur, I had been in business for many years, but my own personal life, there was a disconnect between the success that I was having in business versus my personal failures. And at a point of desperation, I reached out for help because I was tired of hiding behind a mask that looked good on the outside to everyone else, but people didn't know that I cried myself to sleep at night. So I reached out for help, and that help came in the form of a coach who just so happened to be a counselor. And she worked with me for 6 months. She became my safe place where I could be real, I could be honest, I could be open and transparent. And because of the work that she helped me with, I really feel like I got freedom for the first time in my life. And so one of the things that I decided to do was I vowed to help other women become free so they didn't have to suffer behind their mask.
Well, I really think that you've hit on something there because I think there are many women in particular, certainly men as well, but women in particular, who are absolutely um, one face to the public and another face at home.
Oh, yes.
And so what you're talking about is very, very important. So where did you get that tagline, "Don't limit me"? Where did that come from?
One day, my counselor challenged me to start journaling. And in my journaling process, that became the place where I could just share my inner thoughts without fear of judgment or ridicule or anything. So the journaling process really fast forward because I was doing that. I was standing in the mirror one day, just getting dressed like I normally do. And I stopped and I looked at myself and I said, Tasha, don't limit me. Because I realized for the first time in my life that I was the only one that was holding me back. So that's where the phrase "don't limit me" came from.
So do you think that there is a secret ingredient to success for women in business?
Absolutely. And I think it's not as complicated as we make it sound. I think a secret for success is staying honest. If we can stay honest with who we are, honest with our emotions, and honesty with where we need help, I think that helps us to grow and move forward versus the alternative of staying stuck.
Well, I think that we do try to stay honest as we can.
Right,
There are circumstances that just happen to us every day that
right,
we might try to fudge a little bit here and there.
right.
So, what do you think is the biggest challenge that women in business face, and what would you tell them?
I think the biggest challenge is comparing ourselves. You know, it's so much easier for us to look at somebody else, and especially women, and think that, oh, she's doing so much better than I am, or I wish that I had what she had, or I wish that I lived the life that she lived, or even when it comes to our physical appearance, you know. But especially in business, I think when we compare ourselves, we shortchange the gifts and the talents that are unique within us. And going back to what you just asked me on what is the secret ingredient, I think with the being honest, it's honest not just in the raw, you know, everyday life happening stuff, but honest in the fact that we appreciate and own our gifts, our talents, our strengths. That's what's going to help women to rise to who they are and stand in their own power, you know?
Well, it's true. I mean, we do. There's no question. We absolutely do compare ourselves to other people, and of course, one of the things that we always laugh about in the speaking industry is that we say whatever anybody tells you, cut it in half because yeah, it's probably not true, you know. And then, of course, if people say, well, I'm doing X, it could be gross, but what are they netting? And of course, the net is what's important and keeps you alive. So you're right, but it's very hard. You know, you have to do a lot of talking to yourself, not to compare yourself to somebody. So you also talk about the three C's: commitment, which I think is very important; consistency, which is, you know, you have to learn to do things a certain way; and
Right,
connection,
right,
which I think most women are much better at than men, although we do it in a totally different way.
right.
Um, but that leads to both personal and professional growth. So
Mhm.
run through those for us.
Okay. The commitment aspect, I would say, is you have to commit to yourself. If you're going to go on this scary, vulnerable journey of being honest, you've got to commit to the process of seeing it through, which that's a big commitment to yourself. Commitment to the dream, you know, understanding that there is a process, not to despise humble beginnings. You know, I know everybody looks at the people who say, oh, I've made six figures and I've done this, I've done that, but we don't look at the journey that it took for them to get there. When it comes to consistency, I would say consistent action. I tell my clients this all the time, that people are going to know you and like you and trust you because of your consistency. Are you consistent in what you say you're going to do? Are you consistently showing up? Are you consistent to the dream? The connection, I think, if you can commit to yourself, if you can be consistent in your actions, I believe that that's a stepping stone for growth, but also you need connections. We are pieces of a puzzle. And I believe that when we're given these larger than life dreams and visions, it's not necessarily for us to do on our own. I believe that us hooking up with other people, the very fact that you invited me to be on your radio interview, that's a piece of part of connection right there. And connection is a powerful thing.
Well, there's no question. I mean, especially in today's world with all the technology and everybody staring at their cell phones. I mean, I I do a little survey when I stop at a red light and I look over in the other car to see what they're doing, and in 99.9% of the time, they're looking at their phones. Now,
Right.
even if they're not texting when driving, or even if they're not doing that while they're driving, still, you know, I don't look at my phone unless it rings. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, I don't check the messages. When I go to the gym, that phone is in my bag simply for an emergency. But
Right.
I see people at the gym all the time. They're on the treadmill checking their phone. They're on the, I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Right.
So all of this loses that relationship and that connection. Now,
Absolutely.
you also talk about women finding it hard to create manageable, achievable, actionable plans, which I find fascinating
Mm-hmm.
because um, I think women are really good at planning. I mean, since many of them are juggling home life and kids and soccer and piano lessons
Right.
and their businesses, they really have to be organized. So,
Yes.
why do women find it so hard to create these plans that will get them where they want to go, and then they get overwhelmed by everything?
Right. Well, you touched on something, as women normally we're organized, we're multi-talented, multitaskers by nature. But I think what happens is we're so used to doing it for everybody else that when it comes to doing it for ourselves, doing it for our own business, that's where we get sidetracked, we get overwhelmed because it's easier to help other people, but when you're disconnected from yourself, that's when it gets hard. And I've even done exercises with women where I've told them, can you look in a mirror and can you tell me what do you see? And you'd be surprised how many women who are very good at taking care of their families, their jobs, everything, how it's so hard for them to look at themselves. And what I tell women is when it comes to you, you've got to take care of yourself if you're going to be effective for anybody else. So, one of the first things I tell them is let's do a brain dump. Let's write down everything that you're doing, all the roles that you have. Let's write down everything. And then what we do is we compartmentalize. And what I try to tell these women is it's okay that you're doing this over here and over here, but what are you doing for yourself? That's the plan that I help them create.
Well, that's important because, of course, it goes back to life balance, and life balance is really important. And everybody says you cannot have it, but I believe you can. And of
Yes,
course, everybody's life balance is different. What's good for me is not good for you, and vice
absolutely.
versa. But you also have something called this Connected Women Win community.
Yes.
So, what is that all about? Who belongs to it? What's your vision for it, and so forth?
Connected Women Win is it's something I'm really passionate about because of the connection thing that we just talked about. I believe that when women can connect with themselves and they really understand their true identity, they understand their value and their worth, they have more to offer when they connect with other women. There's no competition, there's no jealousy, there's no pettiness or cattiness. I believe when two women who understand who they are individually can come together, there's fireworks. You know, especially in the business arena, when it comes to networking events, when it comes to collaborations, connected women really do win. That's where the phrase came from. This is a community that I house on Facebook, the Connected Women Win community, but we go a step further. We also do meetups locally in the community. I also have women that are all over the world. I've got women in Africa, Canada, you name it, that we're literally every day I'll post a different prompt, like what was something inspirational that you heard today? And these women are coming together and they're really getting to know each other and build that know, like, and trust factor.
I was just going to ask you if it was, an in-person kind of thing or if it's an online thing. And the fact that you have a Facebook community of this is wonderful because people can share, as you say, from all over. And it's interesting. Um, it really is interesting. I'd be interested to get your feedback on this. Even though you have people as diverse as the United States and Africa,
Hmm.
Canada is very similar, of course, to us. But if you're having people from all over the world in this online community, even though cultures are different, it seems like the issues are the same.
That's right.
Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. It absolutely is true. I believe the common thread that links us all together is there's a cry from the inside of us that says, I just want to be me.
Interesting. So, what would you say is the most common problem that you hear from these women who are connected online?
From and I'm thinking about different women that I see their faces right now, from the woman in Africa to the woman in Canada to the woman in New York or California. What I've heard is sometimes as an entrepreneur, as a visionary, it can feel lonely. You're running your own business, you're living the